Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am your host, John Rothman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going. As I like to remind you each and every day, it expands our base. The political world was shaken this weekend by a variety of issues, and it has to do with violence in America. So let's begin with the question of the attempted assassination of former President Donald Trump. There is no room in the United States of America, or anywhere, for political violence, and certainly not assassination. Let's be clear. Donald Trump's situation doesn't change the political arena. What it does do is to alert us to the fact that people are vulnerable to violence. So let's begin with this. Thank God Donald Trump was not hurt. We can all agree on that. Despite some, including people in the Trump camp, who say the Democrats want Trump assassinated, I couldn't believe it when I heard that. Absolute nonsense, absolute rubbish. Let's understand that the universal condemnation of the attempt to assassinate Donald Trump or any political leader should be nonpartisan. It should be direct and clear. Let me also point out to you that I watched Fox and I listened to the implication that maybe, just maybe, this was a gigantic conspiracy by the Democrats. I have to tell you, it was just horrific and wrong. Nobody wants anybody hurt in politics. But violence is not just shooting a gun. And that's what I want to get to. I listened yesterday carefully to J.D. Vance, the Republican nominee for vice president, as I listened to Donald Trump, very carefully, as they described what happened in Springfield, Ohio. They are spreading malicious, vicious rumors that cats and dogs and geese are being used by Haitian immigrants for food. This vicious lie has been denounced by Mike DeWine, the Republican governor of Ohio, a conservative Republican. It has been denounced by the mayor of Springfield, a conservative Republican. It has been denounced. It is clearly wrong. It is clearly not true. And yet, Vance and Trump continue to repeat these charges. Now, let me explain to you why I am lumping this with the question of the assassination attempt on a former president. It is because it incites violence. Look what happened in Springfield. It's very important to understand that in Springfield, schools and hospitals were closed because of threats, because of the rhetoric being used by Vance and Trump, and it's just plain wrong. Do you understand? Violence is not just pulling a trigger. You can incite violence with speech, and that to me is the ultimate tragedy here. So let us not be blinded by the fact that violence is not just the physical act of shooting a gun. It is, let's be clear, sometimes speech. Let me also point out the Secret Service did its job. It did its job splendidly. Those who attacked the Secret Service should be ashamed of themselves. Donald Trump issued a statement this morning commending the Secret Service, and he was right in doing it. The Secret Service is not at fault here. There is no way to control individuals. All you can do is have appropriate protective services. And that is exactly what the Secret Service did, what they provided, effective services. I want to point out that Donald Trump does not help matters when it comes to political violence, when he calls for mass deportation of illegal immigrants. The Haitians who are in Springfield are not illegal immigrants. They are here legally. And calling for mass deportations reminds me of the Palmer raids of 1919, when illegally the Attorney General of the United States rounded people up to deport them because they were Reds or communists or socialists. It was wrong. It was wrong then, and it's wrong now. I want to be clear that when Donald Trump says I hate Taylor Swift because she endorsed Kamala Harris, I believe he is also inciting violence. When you hate, as Donald Trump says, he hates Taylor Swift, this is a problem. And I must tell you, he ought to be ashamed of himself. I want to say a word about Laura Loomer, the right-wing nut who travels with Donald Trump and who is now defending, saying she has a right to believe what she wants. But to bring a September 11th denier on the plane on September 11th is absurd. And then to continue to defend her, even worse. When Elon Musk puts out one of his pieces asking the question why Biden and Kamala are not subject to assassination, that is an incitement to violence. And it ought to be looked into, because once upon a time, when the Secret Service was under the Treasury Department, that kind of language would have immediately resulted in the Secret Service making an arrest, a threat against the President of the United States. These are simple facts. And I want to be clear. The Democrats don't want Donald Trump assassinated. No Democrat has said that. But I will tell you that when I listened to Fox yesterday after the attempted assassination, their incitement against Democrats, the implication that Democrats were responsible. I mean, it's horrible. And let me tell you something. That is why Vance and Trump must lose the election. Because this kind of incitement, this kind of use of violent rhetoric, this encouragement is really anti-American. It's against everything we believe. I believe that violence in America is a reality. I lived through the assassinations of Dr. King and Robert Kennedy. Oh, yes, and John F. Kennedy, too. I also lived through the attempted assassination against George Wallace, who in the 1950s and 1960s used violent rhetoric. Remember, segregation today, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever. Yet when he was shot and nearly killed, what happened? The nation came together. Democrats and Republicans alike came together. And what did they do? They stood by George Wallace, not by what he believed. Remember, his beliefs were one thing, but the attempted killing of someone is quite another thing. We must resist violence in America with everything we have. And that includes not just when someone shoots a gun. It means also when someone shoots off their mouth. Thanks for tuning into another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am John Rothman. Make sure to follow along and let me know your thoughts on the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and sharing an episode with a friend or colleague so we can continue to grow. I want to encourage you to interact with me on Facebook and LinkedIn. And I want to say a special word of thanks to Gogo Zoger, the wonderful producer of Around the Political World with John Rothman. Looking forward to tomorrow being right here with you as we examine what happens next. I can't wait. See you then. Around the Political World with John Rothman is proud to introduce our first sponsor. That's right. We have someone who loves what we do, and I have to tell you, I love what she does. Be Bold America is produced by KSQD, and of course, the person who leads us through these great discussions is none other than Jill Cody. She's an author, a radio personality, and she does one heck of a job of putting into focus major issues, from protecting democracy to our climate. Let me tell you, the topics on the podcast are serious. It's not for the faint of heart, but that's to say the show is for all of us. Be bold in America. In an election year, what can we do to increase discussion, debate, and the rest? I'll tell you what we can do. Listen to Jill Cody as she exposes all of us to the issues. You can tune in on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever else you like to get your shows. So this is John Rothman, delighted, pleased, thrilled to endorse Jill Cody's wonderful program, Be Bold, America.